So the first thing we need to do is take our wire. We've already stripped about 1/4 inch of insulation off the end, and we're going to put our spade connector on it, squeeze it tight, and make sure that we have that crimped joint working for us. All right, so now we're going to connect that to the pole on our motor. Before we do, we'll trim it off. Looks like we need about 4 inches, and we have about 1/4 inch exposed. And we'll take that 1/4 inch and we'll lap it around the motor there, the little contact in the motor. We want to make sure we loop it through that connection. And then we're going to take a little bit of solder, and we're going to solder it to that connection to make sure that that wire is held in place. All right, so we did the exact same thing to the other side, connected the motor to the pole on the switch on the other side in the same way, so they're symmetrical. So now we're going to take another piece of wire that's about 4 inches long, and we're stripping the ends off of actually 2 pieces of wire there, and we're going to loop it loop one of them through the other motor and crimp it in place. Make sure it's wrapped around pretty tightly there. Then we'll solder that in place so that it stays where it needs to go. And the other side of the wire, we're going to twist with the wire we just cut, twist it together, and we're going to wrap that in around on the other connection on our motor on the other side. So we'll have another wire there, and so once that's looped through our motor, the contact on our motor, will solder that in place. Okay, so now we can be sure that those 2 wires that are connected to our motors are not going to come loose. So we should have 3 extra wires at this point, and we've got a bunch of other parts still left, but we're going to start to connect our switches. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll do our LED switches, and we're going to just twist together the leads of the 2 resistors that we selected, and we'll loop those around and connect them to one of the contacts on our sliding switch. Now this is a single pole double throw switch, and we don't really need a double throw switch. We only need a single throw, so we went ahead and bent one of the contacts out of the way because we just don't need it. So we're going to solder the resistors down to one side of the switch. And what's important is that you can, if you do use a single pole double throw switch with the 3 contacts, you need to solder to 2 contacts. And the 2 contacts that you should solder to should be right next to each other. If you solder to the 2 outside contacts, it won't work appropriately. So we're going to take our 22 gauge hookup wire that we had connected before, and we're twisting it onto the other contact. And this is the hookup wire from the positive, the one that's connected to the positive terminal on the battery there. And now we're going to get our switch, and we're getting it lined up, and we're going to put some hot glue down. There's about a nickel-sized bunch of hot glue that we just put down, and we're holding it in place, holding the switch in place. It takes a little while for the hot glue to dry. All right, so now we have our switch in. We're going to try and route our wires so they're a little bit more out of our way, and that's good. Now we're going to, at this point in time, we're going to take our other switch and we're going to connect it. But before we do that, we need to put a little bit of solder on our battery connection in the back here. And this is going to allow us to take the 3 volts from our batteries, because the batteries are wired in series, and drop it down to 1.5 volts. Because our motors are going to run a little slower at 1.5 volts. So that's good for us because they run really fast already. Okay, so we're crimping that wire onto our switch. And again, we just want to make sure that the loop on the wire fits really tightly around the post on our switch, and we're just soldering that in place, making sure that it's got a nice good connection. And so this is the other wire. This is the wire from our motor that we're going to connect to this will be the on-off switch. And the previous switch was the battery, or I should say the switch for our LEDs. And it's sometimes hard to get the wires to stay in place. You can see they're bouncing around for me there. All right, now that solder is in place, now my switch has what it needs to do its job. All right, so I'm going to put down a little bit of hot glue and just make sure that switch is held in place right there. And now we're going to take the other end of the wire. It was a little bit long. I'm going to strip off just a little bit, and we are going to solder that wire to the exposed contact on the battery there. And again, that's going to allow us to run the motor's at a little bit lower speed because we're using a lower voltage. All right, let's see if we can get this to work. And it takes a little bit of doing on this. And one thing you got to be really careful of is that the solder, if you hold the soldering iron on that part too long, it will overheat and melt the plastic and around the connection. So really important you don't do that. I always like to put a little bit of hot glue on top of that. And then when the hot glue hardens, it helps to keep the wire from pulling out. In the next video, we'll make our antennas and connect them to the single pole double throw switches in the front of the bot so that Spout can turn around when he bumps into something.